There are moments in life that change everything. For some people, it's a love confession. For others, it's a big accomplishment. For me, it was the day my family said, "You're marrying this man." That day, I didn't just agree to marry a man. I agreed to give up my own life. Looking back now, I realize that one small yes became the chain that locked me away. I was 25 years old. I didn't have the kind of life I wanted, and chasing my dreams wasn't even an option. My dad was a strong, controlling man. My mom? She was more like his shadow, always following his lead. To them, marriage was the ultimate goal for a woman, her security in life. And they found the perfect guy for me. A wealthy, respectable businessman. He was older, strict, and didn't seem to care about me one way or another. But that didn't matter to my parents. What mattered was that I'd live a good life, at least by their standards. That day, I stayed quiet. I couldn't say no. I was scared. Scared of my dad's anger, my mom's disappointment, and maybe even of being on my own. "You'll get used to it. Everyone's marriage is like this," they said. But they were wrong. Every day, every year with that man, I lost a piece of myself. I held on until I was 40. I put up with his insults, his cheating, his controlling nature, and the way he always made me feel worthless. One day I looked in the mirror and thought, who am I? I couldn't answer. I didn't even consider having kids. How could I bring a child into such a miserable life? Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I was on the edge of ending my marriage, but I was terrified of what would happen next. I knew the fallout could be worse than everything I'd already been through. Still, I started looking for a way out, but nothing seemed possible. Then one day I gathered my courage and told him, I want a divorce. He just stared at me, silent for a few seconds. I was expecting him to yell or hit me. Instead, he said one thing, "Your life after this will be worse than it is now." I was stunned. He didn't react how I thought he would, but his words stuck with me. I thought, what could be worse than this? But I was wrong. He was right. We finalized the divorce, and at 40, I left everything behind and went back to my family. I was so happy, so relieved. The bad days are finally over, I thought. I believed my family would understand and support me. But I was wrong. Again. My dad looked at me and said, "We gave you a good life with that man, and you couldn't make it work." My mom added, "You don't belong here anymore. Go solve your problems on your own." At that moment, I realized even my own family wouldn't be there for me. I had spent 15 years in a loveless, abusive marriage just to make my parents happy. My ex-husband gave my dad a job when we were struggling, so I stayed silent for their sake. I endured the abuse so my parents could live comfortably. Now I'm 45. The decision I made because I thought my family cared about me ended up ruining my life. But one thing's clear to me now. If I hadn't said yes 20 years ago, my life might have been harder, but it would have been mine. After my family kicked me out, just like my ex said, things got worse. I spent my first night homeless, with no money in my pocket. I was completely lost. My own family had rejected me, and I didn't know what to do. But I believed, somehow, it would get better. There was an old friend I'd been close to before I got married. I reached out to her and told her everything. All I asked was for a place to stay for a few days. She didn't hesitate, even though she was married with kids. I stayed with them for a week. Her husband helped me find a job at a cleaning company through one of his friends. I started working right away. They gave me an advance on my first paycheck, and I rented a tiny apartment. For the first time in years, I felt a little bit of happiness. What my family couldn't do for me, my friend and her family did without question. They took me in, and I worked hard to show them they hadn't made a mistake by helping me. I stayed at that job for 3 years. Then I met someone there. We've been dating for 2 years now. He's a kind man and he wants to marry me. But I can't bring myself to say yes. I've told him everything about my past and he understands. Still, I can't shake the fear. I've started seeing a therapist. They say it'll take time to heal, and that's okay. For now, I'm just happy to finally be living my own life. If I could give you one piece of advice, it would be this. Learn to say no when you need to. That one little yes can cost you more than you ever imagined.